Okay, now I will be presenting to you the event organizer, the president of the SFA Young Democrats, the president-elect of the NAACP, and a man of extreme wit. I now present to you John Davis.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, listen. She said that we're gonna go by this tradition called call and response. And so all that is, for those of you who don't know, is that when the speaker says something, the crowd is to respond. So I'm gonna try this again. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Okay, so my job is to welcome you and make you feel happy. Listen, there's a few people whom I'm just so excited and delighted to see. I wanna start with Nacogdoches Normal. Listen, this organization, make sure you stop by their table. What they're doing is they're pretty much an advocacy organization for the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana. Because we know that there are a lot of black, brown, and poor white people who are trapped in this system of mass incarceration that we are trying to debunk. And so I'm grateful for your presence. I'm grateful for my brother, Jerry Ford. He's back there in hiding. Y'all will get to hear more from him. But I just say this, we've been on the battlefield for a while. Most recently, we had a press conference to address Sheriff Anderson and DA Hickman, or vice versa, and their comments pretty much criminalizing the Black Lives Matter movement in Houston. I also want to thank the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I see a few of them here. And I'll tell you this, it's an honor that y'all are here because I know there are a few other fraternities invited, but it shows that you guys really have a dedication to service, especially because it's y'all's Founders Day. So give them a hand, y'all. Listen, everybody else, faculty, staff, administration, and concerned community members, fellow Democrats, it is my honor and my pleasure. Now we gather here once more because America finds herself in a time of crisis and controversy, a time where our leaders are exploiting these crises all in the name of political gain. For this reason, I've decided to call this town hall meeting. Now we're here to stand in solidarity with those who have been affected negatively by terrorism. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Lebanon, Mali, Nigeria, Kenya, and Paris, and so on and so forth. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering, why did I say Paris last? I did that because the corporate media does not say these other names at all. And so it is not to say that their lives or the lives or the victims of the Paris attacks are any less significant than any others. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am trying to do is debunk the myth that those countries that are being plagued by this same disease don't matter, because that is not the case. Now, the main reason we're here is to address Islamophobia. Islamophobia is defined as the ignorant fear and hatred of Muslims because of misguided beliefs. The definition of racism is the belief that all members of a particular race possess characteristics or abilities that are specific to that race. We cannot call all Muslims terrorists if we were to do that because of the actions of a few. Because if we were to do that, we might as well say all Christians are racists and terrorists because of the actions of the KKK. Is that fact? Talk back to me. Okay. And while we're on the subject of terrorism, I just want to be real. I'm more terrified of a white man with a gun or a law enforcement officer with a gun than I am of anybody wearing a head wrap. And so, now, I don't want us to be divided on this issue, because I thought that one of the beauties of America is the freedom from religious persecution. But yet, in 2015, the time of supposed colorblindness, we see that black churches are being bombed and shot at rates that we haven't seen in a long, long time. We're also seeing that mosques where Muslims go to worship are being bombed and shot at unprecedented rates. Some right here in Dallas, in Irving, others in Houston. Black churches and mosques are being bombed and shot at in the same name. In the name of prejudice, in the name of ignorance, in the name of racism. And so regardless of your religious and ideological differences, I believe that God will settle that on the day of judgment. But as for right now, we find ourselves with one common enemy, and we need to deal with this common enemy. Now, to my final point, and the reason that we're here, is to oppose our governor, Greg Abbott, for declaring that we will not be accepting any Syrian refugees into the state of Texas. He says that we are doing it to protect our citizens. And before we debunk this myth with the facts, I want to start with the legalistics. Now, he does not have the power to do this. First of all, it's unconstitutional. What is the Constitution? The Constitution is the law of the land. So in other words, John, what are you saying? I'm saying or suggesting that Governor Abbott, by those declarations and telling churches not to support these people, not to help out the least of these, he is breaking the law. And so our governor is a criminal. That's what he is. And I believe that criminals need to be treated like criminals. We already have one governor indicted on federal charges, and maybe it's time for another one. Now for the facts, and I'm done, I'm closing. But so here's the sitch. To become or apply for refugee status, there's a process that you have to go through. First, you must prove to the United Nations that you have lost your home for XYZ reasons. Either you're being persecuted for your political beliefs, your opinions. Maybe you think that women should have rights. I don't know, but you have to prove that to the United Nations. Second, after your application process and going through several screenings, they then identify countries similar to the US. You know, France accepted a ton of refugees too. But they identify countries like the US, and then you go through another screening process. This is a little longer. You got to go through the CIA. They do background checks, fingerprint scannings. You got to go through the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, anti-terrorism, such and such, and so forth and so on. This is longer than any other process of immigrants that have to get into this country. So in other words, all I'm saying is we really don't have much to worry about. But the notion that I think the governor has made is causing us to be fearful. And this fear and inflammatory language that many of our Republican counterparts are spreading is causing hatred to stir up and causing people's lives to be lost and taken away from them. And this, my friends, we cannot have. I have other Muslim friends who wanted to come, some wanted to speak, but they heard that we were speaking for them at these controversial times, and so they were afraid. These are students at SFA. And I'm sorry, but I cannot stand around while my brothers and sisters are afraid to speak up. We have to be here for each other. Dr. King put it like this. He said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you.
That was powerful. Now that John is done, we'll be bringing Alina Brown. She aspires to change the nation's perspective on alternative medicine through social media and other outlets. However, she's going to be speaking on media bias. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Alina Brown, and as she said, I'm going to be covering media bias. And before I start, I want to say thank you. It's an honor to be in front of you guys, being able to speak today. And so I just want to talk to you guys of media bias and what seems like a complex issue, and how we can actually, as American citizens, combat it with a very simple solution. So to begin with, as you guys might already know, one of the main reasons why we're even here today is because of the Paris bombings and the media coverage that was done following that. So as you guys know, there were bombings in Paris, and as a result, the American public responded with such a strong outcry of support. And through social media, we saw play-by-play coverage on all of the news outlets, and it was a beautiful thing. We saw a nation standing up and supporting another one, and that is great. But at the very same time, on the very same day, Beirut in Lebanon was actually bombed by the same terrorist organization, ISIS. And it seemed like we didn't really see as much coverage on that issue and on that tragedy, really. And so that issue, among many others, a lot of mass genocide in Kenya, in Nigeria, not being covered as much, brought the real question to myself and a lot of my classmates, and that was, how exactly do we decide whose lives are more important than others to mourn for and to cover on the news and to make a flag overlay on Facebook about? And so basically, in order to answer that question, I felt like it was important to take a step back and look at what American media is to us today in comparison to what it was in the beginning of this nation. So in the beginning of American government, our relationship with the mass media, or it wasn't even considered mass media, but with journalism, was, our view of it was an extension of the government. It was a way for the American people to keep our government accountable for their actions. But as time has gone on, and fast forward to present day, when I researched a lot of the influences that went on with how we get our information in the mass media, it seemed like there were a lot of influences that boiled down to how these channels can have a monetary gain. So we have lobbyists in Washington that contact these journalists that ask them to paint whatever the situation is in a positive light. We have whole nations, governments contacting CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, asking them not to cover tragedies going on in certain countries for their geopolitical gain. And there are a myriad of other people, including politicians within our nation, that contact these mass media organizations that ask them not to paint them in a negative light as well. And these media organizations go along with it for a myriad of reasons, but one of them is monetary gain. Follow the money trail. And so all of that to say, these influences are what fuel media bias. It's what fuels how the media changes the narrative of a situation and paints it in a way that results in what I believe is mass Islamophobia in America. Why is it that we feel so afraid of one group of people because of the action of a few? Why is that? And so that brings me to my last reason that I've come to the conclusion of why we have this media bias. And that is pop culture. When we go on television, or when we turn on the television, we hear about the latest murders, we hear about the Kardashians, and then we hear about these bombings. And it makes you wonder, why is it that they are covering these specific issues? And that's because they know that we're gonna turn it on, that we're gonna listen to it, and we're gonna feel like, wait, this applies to me in my home, these murders. Or we're going to feel we have a certain connection with these top issues. And that's what brings me to everybody standing here today, as well as the American citizens. I'm sorry, I'm getting really excited. Okay, so there's a term in psychology that's called in-group and out-group biased. And so when we hear about issues going on in the world, we are more likely naturally as humans to relate to and have more empathy for people that we can feel like we relate to. So when we hear about issues going on in Paris, we're more likely to feel empathy for those in Europe than we are to feel empathy for those in Kenya or Nigeria. And that is an issue that I believe that we need to take a moment and look within ourselves as to why we feel that way, because that's something that's more subconscious that affects the way that the media responds to our demand. It's supply and demand. And that brings me to my conclusion and the very simple solution that I think that we can have for this problem of media bias. And where's my phone? Can everybody bring out their phones? This is like the one time that there's a speech that you guys can bring out your phones. Can you hold them up for me? Thank you. Okay, we are living in a very unique and special era that's never before seen in American and in human history, where we are in the era of information. We can turn on our phones. You guys can put your hands down now, I'm sorry. We can turn on our phones and we can access any media outlet that we decide to. We don't have to just listen to Fox News. We don't have to just listen to CNN. We don't have to just listen to MSNBC and these mass media corporations whose bottom line is profit and not giving us an unbiased overview of what's going on in the world. We can go to nonprofit organizations. We can go to online news sources on YouTube and podcasts, and we can get the information ourselves. And that is where I leave you guys, and thank you so much for your time.
We clap one more time for Ms. Brown. That was wonderful. Okay, I will now be presenting to you a graduate student here at SFA. He is a part of the Iota Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha, and he is a former president of the African Student Organization. I now present to you Bernard Ambe.
How y'all doing this evening? Oh, afternoon rather, I'm sorry. Well, when I was asked to speak here today, I was just told to speak on some experiences that I have that may be unique to my situation as an African student here in America. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the members of the media who have made time to be out here. Your efforts are much appreciated, and we hope to continue to establish a relationship with you in the future of mutual respect. I'd also like to thank the members of the Nacogdoches community that have taken their time out to come and show up this afternoon for this event. As Ms. Chisholm stated, I am a proud lumberjack. I'm an alumnus. I love SFA with all my heart. I loved it so much I even decided I tried to graduate twice. So that's what I'm currently endeavoring to do right now. But the reason I'm so proud is because I believe I live in what I believe is the greatest state of the greatest country in this world. But however, like every society, we have our own issues and we have our own demons that need to be addressed. And these demons are starting to creep into our everyday lives, and I feel that we would be remiss to ignore them. So even though the conversation is uncomfortable, I feel that it's a conversation that must be had. It saddens me to say that one of our biggest issues are right here at home in Texas. And that is not the issue of this person or this group of people being right or wrong, or this religion being right or wrong. It's the issue of an idea. And that idea is the lack of respect or regard for the lives of people of color. And I didn't say the problem is necessarily a person or people. I said the problem is the basic respect, humanity, and Christian love that we say that we are so adamantly supportive of, that we refuse to show to one another. So the idea that my blood is less than someone else's blood because of the fact that my skin is darker, or the idea that my murder is more tolerable or acceptable than someone else's murder because they're white and I was black, is just something that we can no longer live with in this society, which is why we're here today. There's an idea that some people are offended when I say that Black Lives Matters. We're offended by the notion of me insinuating that our lives are also sacred, but that in itself is a problem. If I could ask America one question though, I would ask, if it's so tiring hearing about racism, how exhausting do you think it must be to live racism every day? And if we can just put that in perspective, I think we can get a little bit, we can have open conversations about this and start working towards a solution. And when I say it's exhausting living it every day, I do mean exhausting. I've walked down this street, North Street right here, and I've had slurs and comments yelled at me of people telling me why somebody deserved to die when we're just trying to have a memorial. My mom has had to call me, and I've had to reassure her that me keeping a beard is not a threat to my life, because there's lots of other Christian kids at school, and I blend in with the Christian population. I've had to sit down and listen to my mentor tell me that even though my dad taught me to put my wallet in my back pocket, I might want to keep all my IDs and credit cards in my front pocket so I don't have to reach for anything. I've had to sit down and have those conversations with my sister, assuring her that I've ran all my errands and did all my shopping before the KKK goes marching around town. And I'm tired of it. And I know that other people are tired of it as well. And it's the reality of being black in America every day. But I do believe that we have hope, but that hope could not come without the media helping us to get out the word of what we really go through, to help us dispel the information about Muslims, Islam, and Islamophobia, and tell the truth about terrorism. I have a very simple belief system, and one of the core pillars of that belief system is, if you're going to tell it, then tell it like it is. And by that, I want to address the fact of our Governor Abbott, saying that we will not accept Syrian refugees in Texas. Now, if I may repeat myself, basically a country full of settlers that's not from here, a country founded by immigrants that fled religious persecution, are telling people who are fleeing religious persecution that they're not welcome here. That's basically what's going on. So like I said, I was just asked to speak on my appearances, so that's what I did. She said my name is Bernard Ambe. If my name sounds a little bit funny, it's because I'm from West Africa, I'm from Cameroon. And in Cameroon, we have a Muslim population, we have a Christian population. I lived right next door to a mosque, even though I was Christian. Some of the most peaceful people that I have ever met in my entire life, being labeled as terrorists, as organizations like Boko Haram shed a shade over the entire region. But Boko Haram is not representative of who we are as Africans. They're not representative of the Muslim people, just like the KKK is not representative of any of the Christian white faces that I see here. So we have these little nuances of where other people like Boko Haram, they come in, they terrorize the area, and the world is telling us, the people that they're terrorizing, that we are also terrorists as they're bombing mosques. Now, how is a Muslim a terrorist as their mosque is being bombed? We are struggling to fight an insurgency of 20,000 terrorists that are raising hell in the Middle East, yet we say that all Muslims are terrorists. There are 1.7 billion Muslims in the world. If every Muslim was a terrorist, I don't think there would be a world right now. So I think it's misinformation that's going around, and the misinformation is especially discouraging when you can turn on the TV and they tell you never to forget 9/11, but when a protester is shot, we're asked to be quiet. We're asked, why are we even protesting in the first place? That it forces you to ask yourself, is it only terrorism when a white life is taken? Are you only a terrorist if your skin is dark? Because the killing of innocent people in the church, the killing of innocent protesters, the hanging, castration, burning alive, being tarred and feathered, all those are terrorism and forms of terrorism, which have been inflicted right here in America. And I'm so glad that I was born in America, so it was easy for me to come back here when things got dangerous in Cameroon because of the militia that was trying to fight the Islam extremists that were killing us. We were trying to fight them just you would maybe even call some of us patriots, as you would call those patriots here who try to fight terrorism. And when we did leave, because I was born in Houston, I came to Cameroon shortly after. afterwards, when around the age of, too young to remember, around the age of 3 or 4, we had to go back. It was easy for me to get back in the country, but I just thank God there weren't people like Governor Abbott saying that I should stay away because I'm a terrorist. And if we could just recognize the lives everywhere that are lost, I think we'll just take a great step forward as a society. I think we'll take a great step forward as a country and just as a world. So I would like to leave you with a Haitian saying. And the saying, just to put it in context, there was a preacher who said that the reasons that the Haitians were having so much strife is because they rebelled against their slave masters. So that's the reason that their country is so bad. And in response, there was a saying called "nous les, nous la," which is basically a form of broken French. It's basically saying we are ugly, but we are here. They tried to bury us, but they discovered we are seeds. And when you listen to that, and right now I'm speaking directly to all my fellow students, when you listen to that, I just want you to take into mind that our situation is not our conclusion, and that our circumstance will not be the same forever as long as we continue to keep pushing and be as active as we are right now. So with that being said, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. Governor Abbott, I hope he's getting a very direct message that his constituency is not pleased with what is going on. And with that, God bless you and have a great afternoon.